Um, Hello, beautiful bookish people. My name is Hannah, and today is a continuation of the new series, Reading Booktubers' Favorite Books. This time with Yara from Array of Reading. Yay!
Hello.
Yep, that's me. Reading. And today we've read Love from A to Z, which is one of Yara's favorite books, and I was wondering if you could give us a little summary, give us a little taste of why you like it.
This Love from A to Z is a YA coming of age rom-com about two Muslim teens. One is named Zainab, and she has just been suspended by calling out her Islamophobic teacher, and now she's spending a week with her aunt in Doha, Qatar. And then we have Adam, who has just been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and he's kind of dealing with that diagnosis. And he's also going back home to Doha, Qatar. And they end up crossing paths, and we follow their story as they fall in love.
Super cute, also handle some really serious conversations, but we'll get into that. So one of my theories about favorite books is I think typically, at least for me, there's some sort of personal connection you have to the story. So I was wondering if there was any personal connection you had to Love from A to Z.
So yeah, definitely. And I agree. Like I think a favorite has to have that like emotional factor to it that makes you like think it's a favorite. And for me, I think it's because like basically all of my childhood when I was like getting into reading and stuff, like I was reading all these stories that had to do with like people in America and usually who were white.
Mhm.
And I was like, wow, I wish like one day like I could have a character who was
Yeah.
Muslim like me.
Mhm.
And like I remember being a kid and just accepting, I'm like, oh, there's never gonna be that for
Well,
me. And so like gradually I started finding more books that were by Muslim authors, but I still like there's still that matter of preference. And I was like always looking for this like cute rom-com. And then this book came out and it just like hit every note that I wanted it to hit in a like in a coming of age rom-com.
mhm.
So that's why for me, like it really like connected because it was just what I wanted and what I needed in that moment. It made me also like feel more emboldened and like
Yeah,
want to fight harder for more of those stories in
yep,
YA.
for sure. Did you find like also like with booktube, I'm sure when you get involved you find like a variety of different reviews. Did that like help in your search too?
Oh, definitely. Because so I found out about this book because I read the author's other book, her first
Yep.
novel. And so I was just gonna check this one out anyway because it was the same author, but I actually didn't like I there's nothing like in particular that made me want to read it out like in addition to that. It wasn't until actually I believe it was Sajid from Books Are My Social Life, their review of this book, and like they said it was one of their favorite books. So that made me put it higher up on my list. And then so I ended up finding it randomly on like when I was at Barnes and Noble. So I picked it up and I just like ate it up that weekend. And I did not expect it to love it so much, but then I like absolutely adored it.
Oh, no, that makes me happy because like I think obviously like representation is so important. And I remember feeling it for the Raven Boys, and I have such a variety of like different stories I can pull through, but to have like something hit so specifically to you, I'm sure it's just makes it that much more special. But what I noticed about this book is there's like a lot of like duality. There's a lot of like duality with religion and how people deal with it. Some are trying to find peace, or some are trying to like figure out their anger. So and the two main characters obviously kind of deal with coming of age in different ways. So I was wondering, who did you end up relating to more, Adam or Zainab?
I think one of the things actually why I really liked the book was that I found parts of myself in both of them.
Oh yeah.
I yeah, I think in probably in general I related more to Zainab
Mhm.
because of I guess she's much more outspoken than I would, and I wouldn't have like the gall to say things out loud. But definitely that feeling of like just caring about things so deeply, and then having others belittle that feeling as a weakness.
Mhm.
And it makes you like question your entire reality. Like, why do I even care? Like, is caring wrong then? Is like having these, like being angry about this wrong? So I really enjoyed seeing that. But then like the parts of Adam that I really connected with was kind of like almost the opposite of like that fear of bringing things up to people.
Hmm.
Like you have feelings, but you don't want to like cause conflict. You don't want to confront anybody.
And his vulnerability, I love his little interactions with his sister. Makes him
Yeah.
really, and they both like show like so like different aspects of humanity. Not to sound like an English major.
No, and I liked how he, like the male character was portrayed as like the soft
One
character.
is different and like almost subverted from what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, especially like with the trope of like it's always like the angsty bad boy.
Yeah.
And it's like he's the complete opposite. He just I guess there's some angst, but it's more of like a personal journey that he has to go on.
Mm-hmm. And for sure. And one of like the other aspects I really enjoyed about this book is obviously they have their own journals documenting their life. They're called Marvels and Oddities, and they were both inspired by this painting to document either like a marvel about their life or an oddity. And it can be as simple as like I saw this really cute girl on the plane, or like my teacher's a racist pig. Did it ever inspire you to like document your life in some sort of fashion?
I don't know if it directly inspired or if it just like because I journal, but I think I journaled a lot more after I read it. And like I just really enjoyed that kind of outlook of just like specifically designating like this is something that's good that I like, this is something bad, and
Mm-hmm.
just like processing your life through that kind of lens was really interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it definitely affected the way I journaled. I always try to like find those two in my days in my life and stuff like that.
Did you like the like journal aspect of the book as well?
I think I actually liked it more upon reread. I think the
Okay.
first time I read it, I just kind of I didn't think too much about it, but I liked the way like the bigger picture that we kind of got about how you like look at the world and how it reflects how different people see the world,
Mhm.
especially with the differences in the way that Adam and Zainab go about writing in the same journal. And
Mhm.
how like Zainab, I think at the end they talk about how Zainab has a lot of oddities
Yeah.
and a lot of because she has so much anger like built up in her that she needs to express. Whereas Adam, who is trying to deal with this diagnosis and like not and as well like the grief of his mom dying,
Mhm.
he's trying to see all these like good aspects of life. So I really appreciated that this reread.
Oh, yeah. And like speaking of Adam, like one of my favorite parts about this book was how he didn't tell anyone about his MS because I found that like extremely relatable because I would want to like construct my own narrative around how I wanted people to perceive me.
Yeah.
Did you have like any sort of personal connection where you saw like a relatability factor with these characters?
That part actually like I probably wouldn't keep it a secret.
Really?
Yeah, because like I feel like in like social situations, I'm probably quiet, but like with people I trust, like I need to tell them everything about my life. So and especially like I also like I feel like I cope with things. If I can't like talk to someone, that's when I like write it down.
There's so much like weight on Adam and he deals with it in such like happy ways and I'm like, bro,
I know he's such a pure soul, but
I
he has to
know.
deal with so much.
I'm like, how, bro? Like, what water are you drinking?
And
I need some of it.
the thing with his dad made me very emotional. Like when he told his dad, and then especially when the dad was like, it only hurts me because I think about what I could have done, like what I didn't do. And so now their connection's kind of stronger because they're like they can go through this together. It doesn't have to be him fighting this disease himself.
For sure. And like what this book does really well is I think it talks about big things in very like small connections, like with very small connections. So it isn't necessarily about like Islamophobia or xenophobia, but it still tackles it and it still addresses it, but in like very personal conversations. So there's aspects where like Zainab calls out maybe the Emmas for like, oh, that's a common misconception. And it talks about like white feminism and this sort of stuff. And it talks about like very like big issues in like a very like small interpersonal way. Did you like this aspect of showing like big issues through like small conversations and conversations with people?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think I just in general, I like it when these like small interpersonal relations can talk about bigger issues in the world. And then like there's a line that Zainab says somewhere where it says like Islamophobia is not just like ripping someone's headscarf off. It's like all of these like
Yeah.
small comments that people say, especially online.
Mm-hmm.
And like especially as someone who is not visibly Muslim, like I don't wear a hijab, like that's the kind of Islamophobia that I encounter mostly, is hearing these comments and having to like decide whether I'm going to say something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like that actually is like more of a reason of why these beliefs or prejudices perpetuate more than the outright like instances of violence or hate.
Because it's like more underground. For some reason, it's more accepted.
Yeah, I think it was good that she had the conversation with the Emmas, because like they were her friends otherwise, like
Yeah.
these people that she was just hanging out with, and they were fine normally, but then they would do these like small things that would show that they were like a little out of touch
Mm-hmm.
with their comments, even if they didn't have the bad intention with it.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that they're still not harmful in that.
But I think it was really helpful the way that SK Ali talked about these issues. That in a conversation setting is more approachable than talking about just Islamophobia as a whole.
Yeah, and I also do like that she also kind of tied it in to like bigger actions of, I guess not necessarily Islamophobia, but like the US's actions against like the global South in her storyline with her grandma. That, because it's like, yes, we have these like smaller connections and how they have like real world implications because of those kind of ideas.
Have you ever like felt hardened by like misconceptions you've seen in your real life or anything like that?
One, like for example, a small one that they mentioned in the book, I believe, is the thing about dogs. And
Yes.
that's something that I also kind of grew up with, not necessarily like hating dogs or anything, but just that they weren't like a huge part of my life growing up. And it wasn't until later that I learned all these stories about where dogs fit into or have had historical significance in Islam. And a big part of this book that I think it touched upon when the teacher was talking all about like these countries that all have these oppressive women, or like oppressed women in their countries, are all like Muslim countries or something.
Right.
And it's like it just distracts from the conversation of like cultures and people are not perfect. And like, so people, yeah, like they could be Muslim, but anybody could be any religion and have these bad views.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to say, but you summed it up in a much better way, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I really liked, because like Zainab and then her friend, I think they both like in their reports they did the comparison to like oppressive or ideas in Western countries and how like they exist even if they're just in different forms, and that but we don't have the same rhetoric of attacking the entirety of Western civilization.
No, for sure.
One thing that I always like grapple with is that like there are things to criticize about like the cultures of Muslim majority countries that I criticize about them, but it's because the West has such a huge rhetoric of like these countries are so bad because they're Muslim. Like you can't even express those views without it being weaponized.
Like, I think SK Ali does a really good job of like broaching a subject and then broaching like the history behind it, or like bringing up the stories that like Muslims grew up with, or like even misconceptions of the stories that Muslims grew up with, which is really cool and really interesting to like delve into that topic as well. But in preparation to talking to you, I watched other videos about like Muslim representation, and a lot of times they said they just wanted normalcy in their Muslim representation, meaning like they just wanted to see Muslims doing normal things and just existing. And honestly, I thought of this book. So do you think that this would be a good recommendation for other Muslims to show Muslim normalcy?
Oh, 100%, definitely. And S.K. Ali's other book as well, Saints and Misfits. Like they're, I think especially because these are own voices stories, they come with a sense of authenticity that you may not get when it's like a side character in a other series or just a white author trying to include diversity. And there's also the conversation of a lot of like POC stories have with trauma porn, I guess, or like having these stories that are so centered on the trauma. And it's definitely important to have those stories 100%, but it's also important to have stories that just show joyful relationships and joyful experiences. And I think the story balances a little bit of both. Like it's able to have those discussions because it's just a reality that they're going to encounter a lot of these microaggressions, but they're still able to connect with each other and have like and build this really beautiful relationship.
Yeah. Do you have any other recommendations of like normal Muslim representation? Sorry, that was on the spot. I didn't prepare you for that.
No, it's okay. I'm actually like was planning on making a video because Ramadan is starting soon.
Yeah.
So the one that I really liked was The Lines We Crossed by Randa Abdel Fattah, which is published in Australia actually. So that's cool. It's a bit more heavy because it's kind of this, it's about two characters. One guy, he's from a very xenophobic family. Like his parents were really like the leaders of this like anti-immigrant movement. And then the main character, or the other main character, who is an Afghanistani refugee who's in Australia at the time, and they develop a relationship, and it's really cute, and it has very I don't want to say like domestic, but like small scenes. Like they're just in school, they're just doing homework, but it also tackles those themes of like dismantling his beliefs and like the beliefs that he grew up with. Also, A Very Large Expanse of Sea is similar, but a little bit more like heavy. But again, it has that. I think that one's more like half and half, maybe a little bit more dark than, definitely more dark than Love from A to Z. Cause it's a little more sad.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think Love from A to Z is kind of, I guess, the most like fluffy.
Yeah.
Like it's just very like happy, which I really appreciated.
In this book, there is a lot of discussion between like anger and violence, and specifically with Zaina, because her teacher always accuses her of being violent when she's just like, no, I'm just angry at the situation. So towards the end, I found myself getting even like emotional with her because I was like, this stupid teacher. Why always history teachers, man? So did you ever have like emotional reaction too while reading the story?
Yeah, I was looking at my notes because I took notes on my phone the first time I read it. So I was looking back at them, and I remember writing like I was just kind of cruising through the story, like reading it like anything else. And at a certain point, I just started like tearing up because I was like, I didn't realize how like into it I got and how like into their emotions I got. And definitely with Zainab's frustration and anger, and especially when she kept being told that this is not the route that she has to go to, but yet she has all this pent up anger, and like how else is she supposed to express it if she can't um counteract her teacher's comments and his rhetoric?
When she's being denounced as just wrong.
Yeah. Or like there's always a common like rhetoric to whenever anything that has something to do with like protest or change, it's like, oh, you went about it the wrong way.
Right.
But it's like how are you supposed to do it then if you can't make the situation a little uncomfortable?
Change involves uncomfortable conversations. It's getting people involved and challenging beliefs and all this sort of stuff. But to kind of wrap things up, why do you think people should pick up this book, Love from A to Z? If they haven't heard of it before or anything like that, what do you think this book would like do for them?
I think this is a really unique coming of age story for YA. I think it has a lot of emotional depth to the characters that we don't usually see. And personally, I really liked seeing these two characters have such open dialogues and have these conversations where even if they think that they can't connect on a level, they find a way to, or they're at least open to. And I found that like a really hopeful kind of story to portray in a YA novel.
But yeah, I thank you so much for sitting down and having this conversation with me. You're lovely. Please go and check out Yara. I think Yara is one of the most underrated booktubers out there. Some great reviews. No, it's true. And I'll have her linked obviously down in the description. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Keep reading and all that jazz.
What's the word? I have no vocabulary today.
Time reading it. Might have already answered that a little.
Yeah, I was like, I kind of said that before why I liked it, but
Favorite, wait. Being like religion, what?
being
Being religion. I am the embodiment of religion. I was telling my mom about these questions and she's like, you gotta shorten that up. And I was like, maybe you're right.
Young adult book about two Muslim teens. We have, wait, sorry. I always say teams and I don't know why.